These are my 3 reasons why I think we won't get Sonic Adventure 3. Now, as I said before in the intro, I said I was going to mention the one situation or circumstance which would lead us to get Sonic Adventure 3. Deep down, I believe that Sega or Sonic Team are using it as some sort of Hail Mary, which basically means they're saving it for when the franchise hits some kind of all-time low, which is just like, there's no way to return from this, like, we need to bring Sonic Adventure 3. And honestly, do you really want the franchise to hit an all-time low just so you can get Sonic Adventure 3? I don't think so. Alright, so if you don't already know, Sonic Team head Takashi Iizuka did an interview with IGN where they were supposed to talk about Sonic Frontiers, but then he did something that I like to call, I'm coining this term right now, adventure baiting. That is when you say a lot of things about wanting to bring back adventure, but then not actually giving us the action. Just something to give adventure era fans some smidgens of hope without actually delivering, right? And I'll get into that later, but I'm gonna go over what he said and we're going to discuss what this could mean for the franchise and why this is bad adventure baiting and what they should have done instead. So we're gonna get into all of this right now. But if you're subscribed to the channel already, please make sure to subscribe. We are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers and hopefully 70,000 subscribers before Sonic Frontiers comes out. So yes, IGN have been dishing out Sonic Frontiers related information all throughout June, and the latest one we got on Friday said how Sonic Frontiers came to be an open zone game. According to the description, it says, we talk with Sonic Team creative officer Takashi Iizuka to find out the origins, no pun intended, of Sonic Frontiers open zone design, the split between that design and the traditional linear 3D Sonic levels, and the lessons learned from Sonic Adventure that went into Sonic Frontiers. Find out all of this and more in this Iizuka-san interview for Sonic Frontiers. Now the interview is video based, but they also have an article version, and I'm not gonna get into the whole full interview because I already did a reaction to that, so you can check out that video, but we need to focus on this section. IGN asks, with the inclusion of the open zone, it almost feels like we've completed a loop back to the first Sonic Adventure, which also had a very small scale open world. Is visiting the Sonic Adventure game something that interests you, whether in the form of a remaster or a sequel? Daddy Zook then says, I've mentioned this in previous interviews, which he has, I've covered it before multiple times, but I would like to continue the Sonic Adventure series. Sonic Adventure also contains smaller open spaces known as adventure fields. I think we've used what we learned with those in this game as well. I haven't thought about my next game yet, but I personally think it'd be nice if we could use what we learned with this game in Sonic Adventure. So he starts off with like we could use this for an adventure game, I want to return to it, but I haven't thought about my next game yet. Like that kind of like give us that little bit of hope and then kind of take it away kind of thing. And this has led a lot of people to, well, some people gotten excited and other people have gotten skeptical because if they're going to make an adventure remake or an adventure 3, is it going to be good? But I want to touch on an interesting topic because this is supposed to be an interview about Sonic Frontiers, right? So why are they delving so hard into the next game and we want to do adventure again when it's supposed to be selling this game, right? I mean, people are going as far as to say that Iizuka admitted that this is a test game, that we have to critique Sonic Team to understand how to make things better for the next game? And I'm like, they're 31 years in, it's too late for them to be making test games. I mean, you can have a brand new formula, right? Like Frontiers open world is a brand new formula for Sonic. Well, kind of, but we'll get into that later. So it would be rough around the edges compared to a Frontiers 2, for example, but 1 should still be a solid enough experience on its own to build upon, right? It shouldn't start off mid and then progress to be less mid in the next one in 5 years, I don't know. And this is kind of where my problem lies, right? Because if the idea is that they're going to take what they've learned with Frontiers and use that to do an adventure remake, it kind of feels like they should have already learned the issues already, right? Because a lot of the things that we love about adventure is that freedom of movement. Iizuka talks about freedom in this interview, and you can watch the interview back. He talks a lot about having this freedom to move around, and he's talking about the freedom of the open world, the fact that it is an open world and it's not linear. But he's missing the core freedom that adventure era fans want, which is the movement freedom, the freedom to be able to utilize the environment and the momentum. I know people start to hate that word now, even though it's a core element of what Sonic is, but using that momentum to traverse the environment, having acrobatic moveset, SA2 having the bounce bracelet, having upgrades that really work nicely with the character, having those spin dash jumps, being able to spin dash up certain walls and inclines and things like that, the shortcuts you can take like in Twinkle Park. There is so much freedom in the way you traverse the environment. It's not just, it's an open world and I can run in 360 direction missions, therefore it's freeing. Essentially what I'm saying is that Frontiers could have been a spiritual successor to the adventure games had they gotten the movement right? Because it already has the open world, right? Which is kind of similar to the adventure fields, the big hub worlds of Sonic Adventure, right? And then it's got cyberspace levels, which are your more linear levels, right? Which Adventure 1 has that as well. You got the hub worlds, and then you got the main levels, which are more linear, which you still have open elements in them, but they're not the Mystic Ruins, basically, is what I'm saying. You have that two elements. The only difference here is that Frontiers is adding more stuff to do in the open world, which is what we would expect from a Sonic Adventure 3 if you're adding a big open world, because even 06, which is inspired by the adventure games, has like town missions and stuff in the hub worlds, right? Soliana, Soliana, New City, and even Unleashed, which originally was called Sonic Adventure 3, but they renamed it World Adventure in Japan, and obviously Sonic Unleashed for the rest of us. That has hub worlds that have missions in them. So you have more open hub worlds, albeit with Unleashed skimped control in those areas, and then you have those little adventure areas before the main levels where you can play around with them a bit more, and then you have the linear levels. All of what's being done in Frontiers has been done before in Sonic. Maybe not to the same size or scale of the open world, but it's already there. The elements are there, which is why I don't feel like we should cut them slack if they're not able to pull off this game. Effectively, Frontiers would have been the Adventure 3 that we were craving had it had the right movements. Now, admittedly, Unleashed, which is a game that I love, the open world movement wasn't that great because you were walking around really slowly. It wasn't the greatest control. I'm not even going to deny that. But because the main gameplay was the levels themselves, it didn't really matter because the levels were fun to control because the levels were designed around Sonic's boost control, right? But I'm just saying the open world control could have used some work. Adventure 1 had the great open world control, but unlike Unleashed, it didn't have much content in the open world. So to me, it's like all this talk about doing an adventure game after Frontiers, like whether it's SA3 or an SA1 remake, it's like you had the opportunity to basically do it now. You would have scratched that itch for me as an adventure fan had you gotten the movement right and the level design based around that movement. I mean, you already nerfed the boost from forces, so it's already more adventure-esque in that sense, and you expressed the desire to have more freedom of movement, so you clearly in your vision wanted something like this, right? I mean, even if the cyberspace levels were full-on boost levels with 2D sections, if that open world has got that adventure freedom, I think adventure fans would still get something great out of it, even if it wasn't their exact perfect Adventure 3, right? And of course, again with the automation, every 3D Sonic game has got automation, 2D Sonic games have got automation, but the level to which it is here is more Forces-esque than it is Adventure-esque or even Unleashed to Generations-esque, and that's the problem, right? My fear is that if they do try and make a game and call it Sonic Adventure 3 or even Sonic Adventure Remake, that they're going to take the wrong things that we like about the adventure games. Like they'll say, oh, we like the hub worlds, we like the big open spaces to run around in, but then they forget about the movement, the control, the physics, the structure of the level design, the abusing momentum, that kind of thing. And we essentially just get what the classic fans got with Sonic 4, because Sonic 4 was like, oh, they like those classic games. Okay, we're gonna put that chiptune-y sounding music in it. We're gonna use flatter aesthetics, because that reminds them of the classics, I guess. But then the movement? It's Sonic, they'll buy it. It's got Sonic 4 on the title, they'll buy it. Are they using Adventure 3 for that? Or have they actually understood what we want Adventure 3 for? My problem is they haven't understood what we want, because the truth of the matter is, if they understood what adventure fans wanted, then Frontiers already would have been more akin to what that is, right? I'm not even saying Frontiers had to have been spin dash by force, right? Frontiers could have still been boost and still scratch some of that adventure itch. If you could boost up a hill or a little incline and then do a jump and you still have that momentumous movement, it would still scratch some of that adventure itch, right? If the level design was less automated, even with the boost, it could still scratch some of that adventure itch, so it would show that they know at least how we want Sonic to feel, right? Because even adventure fans and boost fans, being as different as they are, we still want Sonic to feel good, right? Feel good to control, feel good to move around in. People have debates about which game controls better between Colors and Generations, things like that. People still care about control even with the boost games, and you can still have those elements with boost in Frontiers. I don't think the boost is what would doom Frontiers, right? When I think of Frontiers and why it's a little bit doom and gloom for me, it's because I feel like I can't manipulate the environment in any way. Everything is just placed there and I have to use it exactly the way they tell me to, right? I didn't feel that way when I played Mario Odyssey. I didn't feel that way when I played Spark 2 or Spark 3. And to be fair, the boost games can have a bit of that feeling as well, where it's like there's a set way to play it. But with Generations and especially Unleashed, the skill ceiling is a lot higher, so there's still a difference between those who really suck and those who learned the level design and are taking the higher routes and things like that, right? And that's without getting into things like glitches and exploits. Because obviously Forces still has some kind of skill ceiling, but it's just not the same disparity if we don't factor in those kind of exploits. It's a bit worrying to hear Iizuka say that they've given us all this freedom, because it makes me feel like they actually believe they've done everything we wanted. Like, here's all the freedom you wanted. You've got all this freedom, but then the character himself is stiff and can only do what the level tells him to do with barely any room for variation. The top comment on my video basically said, Iizuka is holding Adventure 3 hostage. If you want Adventure 3, make sure this game does numbers. I'm not saying that's guaranteed the case, right? But I just feel like, as an Adventure era fan, I still feel like you shouldn't even be talking about that right now. You should be thinking about what we liked about those games and how to implement it into Frontiers. And if they never said that's what they were doing, then I would have been like, fine, you just want to make something more automated with Frontiers, cool. In that case, you would have succeeded in your dashing like a maniac automated us vision. But the fact that they said they're taking inspiration from Adventure and that they want to give us more freedom than the past 3D Sonic games, and then they're still making something more automated and more stiff feeling in terms of what you can do with the character and the physics, it shows to me that they haven't learned all the right lessons, unfortunately. All I can say is, don't name the game Sonic Adventure 3 if you're not ready to bring that heat. Just give it a fresh name and don't try and cash in on the Adventure games unless you know that you've got what we want. Because clearly you missed the mark with Sonic 4, and that wasn't Sonic Team, that was Dimps. I don't know how much involvement Sega had with controlling Dimps when it came to Sonic 4. Apparently Sonic 4 was supposed to be just a phone game and then Sega reworked into Sonic 4, I don't know. But it's clear with what happened with Mania, you know, destroying Sonic 4, it's clear that we need fans who really appreciate that era, who understand what we love about the era, to step up and to basically come to Iizuka and say, listen, here's the adventure engine that we've made. We've recreated Adventure 1 and 2 in this engine to prove it could be done or whatever, and then basically repeat the Christian Wyatt formula, get them to release those remakes, and then eventually those people will make Adventure 3. We get our Mania or whatever. Like, that's the only way I see it happening in a good way, right? If we leave it up to Sonic Team, then it's only reason to panic. I'm sorry. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this situation. Iizuka is Adventure baiting. Let me know if you think anything's gonna come of this, or if he's just panicking and trying to hype up Frontiers. Do you think having better physics and less automation in Frontiers would have made the game scratch that adventure itch a little bit more for you as an Adventure fan? And of course, a big shout out to all my channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can click the join button next to the subscribe button. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. Make sure to check out the non-Sonic channel. The link will be in the description. But that's all I have to say right now. So, Remy out.